it's turned out very badly for them because the next thing is they're being looked at as a creep or a stalker, and that's mostly because the babe wasn't even interested in them. So I don't know. It probably works better for women because women can get away with such and they aren't looked at as creeps or as stalkers, because of such a thing. Because if guys could do that, because it's not like guys haven't contemplated doing that, but if guys could do that and it would give very good results, then
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. He is also a man who may include jumping to conclusions to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I'm here to speak on dating, but more so circumstances around dating. Because I feel like if I was to say dating again, it would sound as though all I do is just talk about dating. But it's probably the most general part of the theme. But for the most part, it's just a circumstance issue. Because, there's interesting circumstances that are holding people back from dating. And I would argue that a lot of it affects men, but in this particular case, I feel like it's affecting women as well. Actually, for most of this episode, I feel like it'll be affecting women even more than it's affecting men. But, that's something that you'll probably find out more of as you continue to listen. Of which, if you do like what you're listening to, I hope you listen all the way till the end. And should you like it, should you not like it, should you have a different sort of feedback, or should you have a potential topic that you want discussed on this podcast, you can always hit me up. The DMs are always open. The social media links are usually in the description and they rarely ever change. So you can slide in there, and if you end up on any one of those pages, a nice follow would be highly appreciated. But all that said and done, I thank you so much for listening, and like I said earlier, I hope you listen all the way till the end. Now, I do have to get into the topics of today, although before I can do any of that, first of all, the interview that I did with Wes was amazing. And your feedback's been pretty good. He's a pretty interesting character. I'd love to have him on again. And I know I already have someone that's lined up to be a guest as well, hopefully within this month as well. But if there's anyone that you'd want me to have on the podcast as a guest to interview them, whether once or multiple times, you can always hit me up in the DMs. My DMs are always open. The social media links are all the same, like I said earlier. And, if you have a direct contact to them and, you wouldn't mind sharing, I'd appreciate that as well, so that we can get more and more people that can add to the many different conversations that we have out here, whether it's in relation to relationships or society today, or, the stuff that we go through on a day-to-day. I feel like those are the people that we need to bring in, and it's not that it has to be primarily centered on relationships, because I think people forget that relationships is beyond just the romance that's there. That is your relationship with yourself, there is your relationship with your money, there is your relationship with the environment around you, the corporate environment, the business environment, even the personal environment. There's a lot that can be discussed. And, if there's anyone that you'd love me to interview or you feel would be great as a guest on this podcast, then, just send that name over. If you have that contact, send that too, so that, we can make this shit happen, But anyways, all that said and done, I probably should be moving to the main topic of this episode. But before I can do that, I first want to address dating. More so, even before the date, just approaching the opposite sex. And the reason I'm saying approaching the opposite sex is because I'm not centering it on men approaching women. I'm opening this one up to even women approaching men. Now, for a long time, a lot of people have been claiming that, there's no potential options out there. Oh, it's so hard dating out here, blah, blah, blah. And people have given different reasons. But more so in this part of the world where I'm speaking from, which is Nairobi, Kenya, a lot of people have given some very varied reasons that just don't sound all that good. But I stumbled across a particularly interesting video from a podcast that Chris Williamson and Tucker Carlson were doing, or at least a video that they were doing together, where Chris Williamson was busy discussing some of the strategies that women were using to try and get dates with guys that they found as potential. And, it was a particularly interesting discussion, at least for the short clip that I watched it, but it did kind of show me something quite interesting. Now, I am going to let the clip play, then I can give my thoughts on it, because I feel like there's something to be learned from this. even though it may not directly affect people in the same exact way. But anyways, let me let the clip play, then I'll give my thoughts on it. So without further ado,
these women stealing finance bros salads.
Hey, oh my god, so sorry, I grabbed your salad. Like, let me just make it up to you and buy you a new one.
She's saying that some of her friends go to salad bars and steal the salads that are waiting on the side that have been ordered for pre-collection from these guys that work on Wall Street. And then they find them on Instagram based on the name that's on the top of the order and message them as a counter to the fact that so few men that are eligible are approaching women.
They're really clever, I must say.
Dude, they wipe the floor with guys with that social stuff. Another girl walking through Central Park, and she's basically saying, like, walking through Central Park, my hair's great, my skin's great, I've got the boobs out today. And I wonder if any man is going to approach me.
Nobody ever hits on me or approaches me. Ever.
So it's evident to me that there is a world of women who really would quite like to be approached more by guys.
Okay. Interesting take, actually. Okay, not even the take itself, but rather the strategy. Of course, that does show that, men, at least in the West, aren't approaching women as much. And I usually find clips like this and takes like this to be very interesting because while people in this part of the world might have a different take and a different set of issues on it, it kind of reminds us that the dating situation is very different in many different parts of the world. Like, I have a friend in the UK who I talk to from time to time, and the guy was actually talking about how the dating scene is very different there. And like, there was the whole thing about how a lot of trying to date a woman there seems very transactional. And there's also the element of, if the babe doesn't like you and you try to approach her, there's a way she could, accuse you of being a creep or like sexual harassment or anything of that sort. And they usually go down hard on guys over there. So it makes the whole job of approaching women a lot harder, even though you think you might be a good looking guy. If you're average or just above average, even though you have the confidence, that confidence gets taken away the moment you realize that the laws there are very, very strict if a woman says that she's being abused or there's a creep that's stalking or something of the sort. So it does show how different it can be on that side of the planet. I know in the US, of course, there's the whole issue of approaching women, but it's roughly about the same. And the complaint on that part of the world, like in the West, is mostly the fact that men aren't approaching women and men have their justifications. Like, guys will talk about how they don't want to be accused of being creeps or predators or abusers or, guys that commit sexual harassment or sexual abuse, just by trying to approach a woman. And for that reason, they'd much rather just maintain that distance. It's a beautiful woman, they want to approach them, but they don't want to go through the possible situation of being looked at in that kind of light. But then on this side of the pond, it's a completely different thing, which kind of goes back to a clip that I saw not too long ago where a guy was busy talking about how a lot of guys, but he was mostly centering on like guys in their 30s and 40s, aren't dating because they're either financially unavailable or emotionally unavailable. And I feel like that's the issue that's plaguing a lot of guys in this part of the world. Just mostly because when I talk to a lot of single guys, like, they either end up not getting into the dating market or they don't last very long in the dating market before they kind of eject themselves, mostly because on one end, they don't want to deal with the expectations of a babe that feels like she's entitled to a certain kind of treatment, which can sometimes be very financially motivated, and, they don't want to be taken advantage of. And, they've also seen how, like, there's guys that are getting it for free and you're being asked to take out on a date. And it just doesn't seem like it's that good of a deal for the most part. Not that I'm saying every single woman is giving it up to a guy for free while charging another dude, to have to take her out on a date for a couple of days or weeks before he can hit. But there's just that feeling of, okay, if I now start trying to date this babe, there's all of this spending that I have to do, and it just looks like it's either too much work or it's just too pricey for me. Then on the flip side, there's the other guys that are just emotionally unavailable, where they probably tried being in the dating market for a bit, they were shown a bunch of shit, and they decided to just focus on themselves. Or as they were growing up, or from when they were kids, they weren't really shown that much love and affection, so they just grew up emotionally malnourished and they got used to that, and that's what they feel is the norm. So there's a lot of guys that have been treated in a way that has promoted them becoming avoidance as far as attachment issues are concerned. And as such, even though they could get into the dating market, they're not that emotionally available. On the flip side, the guys that are making a lot of money are either super busy trying to make that money, of course, or they're married. And the super busy ones will maybe try dating for a little bit, but if it becomes that big of an issue, or if the baby is super demanding, then he might as well not date her. Then on the other hand, the guys that are very, very present in the dating market are these married dudes that are, playing the game with very, very little levels of risk, because even though they lose out, even though they luck out, they can still go back home to their wives. So it's a tricky place for guys to get into the dating market, but it's also a tricky place for women who are trying to get out of the dating market by, finding a potential partner, because most guys don't feel like they measure up enough that they would be good enough to date. And on the flip side, the ones that do feel like they're good enough to date, and they probably might be, are already taken, and that becomes an issue. So while we may not have the same issues as the West, I do feel like our issues are also there, and we also do need to figure out our issues as far as, approaching women, or should I say just getting into the dating market and finding good potential partners. Although with that said, when I think about the whole salad thing, I've heard of Uber guys trying to do that, and I've heard of guys in different service industries do that, because a lot of people will pay via M-Pesa, which is mobile money. And it's turned out very badly for them, because the next thing is they're being looked at as a creep or a stalker, and that's mostly because the babe wasn't even interested in them. So I don't know. It probably works better for women because women can get away with such, and they aren't looked at as creeps or as stalkers, because of such a thing. Because if guys could do that, because it's not like guys haven't contemplated doing that, but if guys could do that and it would give very good results, then more guys would probably be doing the same thing. So it's not that we didn't think about it, it's just the law isn't very much on our side if we were to attempt such a thing, But anyways, all that said and done, I'm going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode, which is a particularly interesting question, because normally I feel like this is a question that guys tend to deal with more often than not, where it comes to dating and finances. And I know people get tired of the money part. It's probably not what you think, all right? It's not who gets to pay for a date. It's even before that. It's the idea of whether finances can actually determine whether someone should be going out to date in the first place or not. And usually this is something that guys tend to struggle with, because for the most part, guys are usually valued for their resourcefulness, and more often than not, I hear the whole statement of, a man's job is to be the provider, blah, blah, blah. So for us guys, it's something that we will kind of have to deal with and juggle for the most part. But now the interesting thing is, I have a case where a woman is busy asking that question, and she's making it seem as though she's not worthy, which I found to be particularly odd, because I normally don't hear women complain about such a thing. But now, since she decided to post it up on Reddit, I figured I might as well discuss it, because it does sound like it's something pretty interesting. So the title was, "What Business Do I Have Dating as a Broke Girl?" And what she says is, and I quote, "Lately, life's been giving me signs I can't ignore. I love good, expensive things. I have taste, just not the budget right now. After paying school fees, I'm flat broke. Some weekends I waitress, and that little money becomes my fare to school and my survival fund. Is it hard? Yes. Am I complaining? Double yes. I don't even pay rent. I live with a relative, so at least my roof is covered. But my mental health? Yeah, it's doing the heavy lifting on that one. I still can't afford all my essentials. I'm even thinking of cutting my hair because, at this point, simplicity is survival. I don't like asking for handouts. I'm trying to use this time to build myself quietly. My priorities are survival, peace, and progress, not romance. I just want to make it to 2028, graduate, and breathe easier. Because honestly, imagine trying to quote-unquote match energies with your last 100 bob at the start of the week, exams coming up, stress piling up, and that 100 bob is supposed to last you till Friday. Hustling during exam week is a disaster waiting to happen. Dating becomes pressure. You start worrying about how you look, what you can afford, the impression you're giving. Even a simple date feels like a financial risk. You start pretending you're fine when you're not, and that pretending drains your soul. I want to love from a place of confidence, not scarcity. I want to give because I can, not because I'm trying to prove I'm worthy despite being broke. So yeah, to that nice guy I met last month who won't stop blowing up my phone, I actually like them this obsessed. I might just have to break his heart. I'm out here consoling myself like this is Nairobi. He probably has a backup so it won't hurt as much. And honestly, I need to hear it's okay because I've laid out my case. Tell me it's okay to choose myself right now. End quote. Okay. Particularly interesting take, and I can get where she's coming from, and I feel like the people that would probably get her situation more than anything are guys, but you know what, let me get into it a little bit, and then I can kind of explain why it's not as bad. But even though she was to go in the route of just her choosing herself, it's not a bad option as well, because it's actually not. She's not making a bad decision if she chooses to not date. And unlike a lot of other people out here who will usually say, I'll just focus on me and my grind, and then they basically just go back to doing the same exact shit they were doing, it's just that they don't have a partner at the time. In this particular case, she's talking about paying more attention to her studies, so it's not like it's a bad decision. I think this definitely does count as choosing yourself. Although, before I can get into my thoughts on the entire thing, let me just read one of the comments, which I feel fleshed out what I want to say a lot better, because I'm going to go into detail. So some guy said, and I quote, "The simplest advice I can share with you as a 24-year-old male who's been indirectly and directly taught that he's only worthy based on the value he derives or what he has and can offer is to simply be unapologetically yourself. I mean, work with what you have and ensure you're doing something that will genuinely push you to your dreams, whether it's school and whatnot. Work on your self-concept. Change your narrative. You are worthy of being loved as you are, the struggling version, the broke version, the overthinking version. You are simply worthy of everything regardless of your circumstances. Stop allowing your circumstances to determine your identity and who you are and what you crave for. When you drop the act and work on loving yourself more and all that kind of stuff, you will attract your people, and those who don't love you at the stage of life you are right now, they do not deserve any version of you. Stop thinking from lack. I am still learning to do this." End quote. Okay, that kind of goes almost in line with what it is that I wanted to talk about, of which, first of all, I think we need to start being a little bit more honest about being broke out here. Okay, not necessarily to everyone, but I feel like we need to have less shame about being broke. And I say this not as someone who has a ton of money or anything, and yes, I know broke is relative, but I say this as someone who's been in a position where I didn't have money, and mentioning that I was broke felt like a very bad thing. But the truth of it is, being broke is a very normal thing. Like, I feel like most people, if not just about everyone, I feel like for probably about 99.9% of us, we know people who have a lot of money who've also said that they're broke. So it's not a situation that is specific to you and it's so bad that you shouldn't share it. I feel like more and more people should be okay with admitting the fact that they don't have money, because it can save you from a lot of stress. And yes, you might look bad, but fine, you're broke for one day. Doesn't mean that you'll be broke forever. Because I know people that are making upper tier 6 figures that will call me and they'll tell me that they're broke. I know people that make very little money that will call me and they'll tell me that they're broke. And even though it's not calling, like, I'll have discussions with these guys and they will admit to me that they're broke. Even people that are making millions will also say that they're broke. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, broke is relative. For some people, broke is having 50k in the account. For other people, broke is having 5k. For other people, broke is having negative 75k in the account. At the end of the day, broke is going to be relative depending on who it is that you ask. But the point is, everyone gets broke at some point. There's very few people on this planet that are ever in a position where they never lack money. There's very few people on the planet who have never been in a situation where they lacked money. So admitting that you're broke shouldn't be a bad thing, especially if it's with someone that you would like to have some sort of a relationship with, because admitting that is usually the first step to having a good, financially healthy relationship for a lot of people. Just admitting your financial situation at that time can help you go a long way as far as planning yourself financially and doing a lot of the things that the two of you would like to do on a financial level. Because for a babe, yes, it's not that necessary for you to be spending your money, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you know, as a guy, you're the one who's supposed to be paying the bills, not the babe. And I can get that. But on the other hand, like a babe that contributes to the bill is always going to be considered a gem. Not unless if you're one of those guys that's like, oh, you know, I'm a man, so I have to pay all the bills. But, you know, that's just you. And even with that said, the whole idea of matching energies is something that I consider to be particularly BS. Whether you're talking about it as matching energies with your friends, whether you're talking about matching energies with your partner, I still see it as garbage. And I see it as garbage from the partnership perspective, in that if you're trying to match energies with someone that you're with, then you're completely missing the mark on what makes relationships special. Because it's not about matching energies. I promise you it actually isn't. It's more about understanding each other and making those compromises because you are understanding each other. Because I kid you the hell not. Like, people will always talk about reciprocity and how you always have to be ready to bring 100 to the relationship. And yes, that's true. That's a fact. But sometimes 100% of what someone can give might only amount to 30%. Sometimes it's going to be 70, sometimes it's going to be 50. Sometimes you can only give 50%, and other times maybe you can even do 110. Does that mean that you should be giving less as a partner because your partner is giving you less? No, that's not how it works. You'll never always be at 100. And for you to expect the other person to always be at 100 is wrong. If you want to talk about matching energies with your friends or like your friend groups and everything, at the end of the day, the relationship is the two of you. Why the fuck do other people have to worry about, you know, the dynamics of the two of you? If you guys want to just sit and chill at home and, you know, you feel like a lot of the spending that guys are doing is very unnecessary and expensive, it's entirely up to you. If they have a problem about it, you can tell them to leave you alone, and if they seem so concerned, they can go screw themselves, aka have an orgy. Because at the end of the day, the relationship is the two of you, not the two of you plus everyone else. Okay? So the whole matching energies thing, I think it's absolute BS. But she did mention that she wants to love from a place of confidence and not from a place of scarcity, which I do think is good, and I do believe is coming from the right place. Especially for me as a guy, I do have that issue as well, where I will also wonder whether if I was to date a babe that was making more than me, or even significantly more than me, whether I'd be able to love her from a position of scarcity or from a position of confidence. And the truth of it is, I believe that as a man, actually just as people, you need to understand that your value goes beyond the money. Yes, you may want to gift someone. Yes, you may want to do some act of service, and a lot of that shit is very financially based. But the truth of it is, when it comes down to it, the best gifts are rarely ever the most grandiose ones. Yes, maybe my babe buying me a PS5 would be amazing and I'd love that. But at the end of the day, especially if you're gifting a guy, you can keep it simple and you can keep it cost effective. Hell, you gifting him can literally be you making him a meal, and that'll be it, and the guy will be happy. It'll mean more to him that you went out of your way to try and be there for him on a special day, or to gift him in some sort of special way just to show him that he's special. Because I kid you the hell not, like, guys are some of the easiest people to gift. Not because we're cheap or guy stuff is cheap. Don't get me wrong, a lot of that shit can be a little bit pricey, but at the same time, you can also not spend as much money and you can get so much value out. Because first of all, guys don't even expect gifts in the first place. Guys aren't used to being gifted. Most guys actually rarely ever get gifted. So if, for example, on his birthday, you decide to come to his place and make him his favorite food, he can even buy the ingredients himself, but you make him his favorite food, that will carry way more value than you buying him a bottle of cologne. Kid you the hell not. Like, guys will care more about you coming, cooking for him and cuddling with him for that day than you buying him a bottle of cologne. Trust me, if the guy really cares about you, you just coming to spend the day with him might actually carry even more value than that. So when it comes down to it, don't look at you not having money as being in a position of scarcity. as human beings, we carry a lot of value, regardless of gender. And the more we drill down the idea of money being the value thing here, the more we lose sight of the fact that there's way more that we can provide as human beings, regardless of gender, that can show value as far as you trying to do anything with anyone is concerned. So don't look at it as a position of scarcity just because you don't make money or you're mostly flat broke. More often than not, if you're with a guy and he's doing fairly okay for himself, he shouldn't have a problem with that. But even with that said, like, I feel like the only thing that I'd probably tell you if you were to get into a relationship with said dude, of which, you know, I'm pro relationship, so I would probably side with it's okay, just go and date the guy because you're a babe. It's not like you're expected to provide much. I'd only give you a couple of rules, and the first rule I'd give you is to be honest about your finances, because it's likely that he's either somewhere similar, especially if the two of you are in university or something. And, you know, at the end of the day, if both of y'all are broke, why are you worried so much about the money? If both of y'all are broke, the both of you can just chill and cuddle in the house, and that's okay. Then the second rule I'd give is you keep your spending to a minimum. If the guy makes a lot of money, or if the guy has a lot of money, if he spends too much on you, then it's very easy for him to turn you into a dependent, and that is going to be bad. Or worse still, he might end up using that to justify whatever behaviors it is that he's doing, or he will use that to make you justify staying with him despite whatever shitty behaviors or shitty things that he might do to you. So if you can keep the spending to a minimum and focus on not spending as much money just for your sake, not even necessarily his, not unless if the guy wants to start footing the bills on a few things here and there, I think that it probably shouldn't be that big of an issue. Then the third rule I'd probably give is recognize that your value goes beyond money and use that to be creative, regardless of gender. Even though the guy isn't having as much money, y'all cuddling at home isn't a bad thing. Y'all chilling together and taking a walk isn't a bad thing. I know it sounds very mundane and basic and boring, but guess what? A lot of things that make good relationships really good is usually the boring stuff. So don't think of the grandiose stuff, try and be creative with the little that you have. Because trust me, if you really care about someone and you choose to be creative, that value shoots up a hell of a lot more, because more often than not, people usually think that if you value someone, you have to do something grandiose about it. Yet it's not about the big things. More often than not, it's the thought that counts, and if you can do it in a little way but very creatively done, it'll carry way more value than you just blowing a bunch of money on something big. And with all of that said, let me just conclude by saying this. Honestly, whichever route Shorty takes is perfectly okay. If she decides to choose herself and reject the guy, I can totally understand, and I am totally with her on that one. But should she decide to take the leap and actually get into a relationship with a dude, then she isn't badly off. Because after all, you know, sounds sexist, but she's not really a dude. But even with that said, in the great words of Henry Ford, whether you do or you don't, either way you're right. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at this in the wrong way, and maybe I should be telling her something different. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. On X, it is at bagakathed. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.